voice and sight control areas in 7 different places. Rodeo Beach here in Marin County, Fort Mason in San Francisco, Ocean Beach in San Francisco, Crissy Field, 2 locations, the airfield as well as the beach, the Central Beach, and Fort Funston in 2 locations as well, along the beach and then also in the uplands. Next slide. These are some of the basic elements in the proposed rule. And I want to talk a little bit about how we make decisions about each location. There are basically 6 criteria, 6 objectives that we use every time we look at an area and say, what's appropriate here? What are the things that we think can be the most balanced approach to recreation in GGNRA? And those 6 things include, first, maintain park resources and values for future generations, preserve and protect natural resources, cultural resources, and natural processes, reduce user conflicts, improve visitor safety and employee safety, provide a variety of visitor experiences, and provide a clear, enforceable policy. Next slide. Here's a little bit of overview on permitted dog walking. This is the place where we did add a time and day limit. We had heard some comments from people both in the draft EIS and the supplemental EIS about having different experiences in locations, different times of the day, and this is an area where we did adopt that recommendation. So we do have 7 different areas where permitted dog walking can happen: Alta Trail, Rodeo Beach and vicinity, Fort Baker, Crissy Field, with some restrictions around the promenade, Fort Mason, Baker Beach, and Fort Funston. Additionally, there would be a requirement for permit and training in order to provide educational opportunities and lessen conflicts. Next slide. This is an overview map of GGNRA. We've got another one that's in the hallway there that may be more useful for you all to look at, but it indicates here the extent of federal lands, the extent of GGNRA's boundary. It's about 60 miles from the northern area in Marin down to San Mateo County that consist of national parklands. So let's go through each county. Next slide. So we'll start with Marin County. 18% of the park trail miles that the GGNRA has in Marin County will be open to on-leash dogs. It's a total of 14 miles. It's interesting to note because as we have greater and greater numbers of people using areas, Marin County is, I think, blessed with a lot of open space. And Marin County Open Space offers 155 miles of on-leash dog trails and fire roads. And the Marin Water District provides 130 miles of on-leash roads and trails. Marin County Parks has 0 off-leash areas. Next slide. These are locations in San Francisco County. On-leash dog walking on GGNRA trails in San Francisco, 71% of the trail miles in the GGNRA will allow on-leash dog walking. And the City and County of San Francisco has 28 off-leash areas for dogs. Next slide. San Mateo County. These are the 5 locations in San Mateo County where we'll have dogs allowed. About 14 miles of trails will allow dogs on leash, 39% of the total trail miles in the park. And San Mateo County has 0 dogs off leash, but 10.6 miles of trails on leash. Next slide. So again, I want to point out the way to comment on this rule is different than some of the past processes. So we have small business cards that are out in the foyer, as well as the hall down there that provide information. Please feel free to take not as many, but take a fair share if you want to share with your friends so that folks who weren't here will be able to comment as well. Next slide. Do we have a tips for making comments slide? There we go. Sorry, I missed that one. Out of order. So tips for making comments. We want to provide some information about what kinds of comments can really help us further this process in terms of being able to get clear on what the on-the-ground implementation of this would look like. The Office Management Budget helps us with this from guidance that they've provided. So really we ask you to focus on the proposed rule, on the 14 pages that are out there. We could really use help, the definitions. Some of those have been modified. Do those make sense? Does voice and sight control as we've defined it give enough information to people to understand what we're looking for compliance. The monitoring and management approach. One of the things that we've included that wasn't in the previous version is a program that we can implement should we be identifying areas of non-compliance in off-leash areas. We've looked at the Boulder Green Tag program. And while there's mixed results in terms of how that's worked for Boulder County Mountain and Open Space Parks, we have included it as an option that we could use to train people in off-leash etiquette, train people in off-leash management of their dogs, as well as voice and sight control, and then provide an opportunity for them to be certified, be tagged, and then can be qualified in that off-leash area if we see too much non-compliance. And then, of course, guidelines on things like voice and sight control and aggressive dogs. Next slide. So that concludes the presentation portion. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being here, and we will start the Q&A 1 hour period now.
Thank you, Superintendent Leonard, and thank you all for your respect in listening to the presentation and joining us this evening. I'd like to review how we're going to run the question and answer session, and at that point we'll begin to take the questions. So for the next hour, we're going to have our expert staff members, which I'll have Superintendent Leonard's introduce in just a moment, as well as Superintendent Leonard's up here to help answer those questions. After the first 60 minutes of Q&A, our NPS staff members will return to the information tables, so you can get up at that time and return to those in-depth conversations or get some more information or look at the maps. At that time, Superintendent Leonard has agreed to stay up here and continue to ask questions for as long as we can take them before the evening adjourns at 8 p.m. I'll pause halfway through the evening and let you know those time changes as well. So the way that we're going to run the question and answer session, if I could have our mic lead stand up. So this is Aaron, this is Adrian. One of them is going to be on either section, and they're going to be taking questions up and down. We ask that you keep your question to under 1 minute and one question at a time, please. That allows for us to get to as many questions as possible tonight, as well as get some good clarity so we can ensure and actually answer your question the best that we can. Again, Superintendent Leonard may call on some of our expert staff members to get you the correct answer that you are requesting. So a couple of group agreements. We ask that you keep your cheering and boos to yourself so that everybody can hear. Again, if you are blocking anybody's view and they ask you to remove your sign, we just ask that you are respectful of that and do that at that time. So we're going to begin our question and answer section by actually pulling from the box so that folks can start to formulate their questions. So as you saw in the beginning, we had people submit questions. So I'm just going to pull one out.
And right now, let me go ahead and introduce the folks. Go ahead. Sure. Who are going to be a part of the team here that's going to help to do our best that we can to answer the questions that you have. Mike, who is the park lead on dog management planning, are you available? Again, I would ask you please to be respectful. These folks are also setting aside time out of their lives to be here and try to provide the best information we can to you. Thank you. Michael, who's visiting from Fort Collins, the National Park Service lead for environmental impact analysis. Daphne, the Park Chief of Natural Resources. Randy, the Park Chief Ranger. Noreen, Commander of the U.S. Park Police, is in... Where are you? Oh, there you are. You blend in. Thank you. And then Mia Monroe. She's in the back toward that flight stream, who is our Marin County Park Liaison. Okay, thanks.
So again, I'm going to read the first question pulled out of the box, and after that we'll take live questions from the audience. Throughout the evening, I will be pulling some questions from the box, those to respect those who submitted their questions in written form. So the first question for Superintendent Leonard. Joe from Mill Valley asks, how can an official rule be issued when it is based on observations of 1979 park employees compared to 2016 observations? It is all based on insufficient data, lack of 24-hour observation, and other standards.
You know, the proposed rule that we've put together is based very much on the preferred alternative that was provided in the supplemental EIS. That includes a number of different resources and materials that we use to help develop our preferred alternative, one of which is scientific studies. And we have a number of published, peer-reviewed scientific studies, as well as other information that's in there. It does include park observations from employees in the National Park Service that are updated and provided as we get that information. For example, we have from 2008 to 2011 data that came out of our data systems around reports of incidents associated with dogs, dog bites, attacks. We use a variety of information sources for that.
Thank you. So we're going to take our first live question on this side, and then we're going to move into the back with Adrian. So again, please keep your question to 1 minute and one question at a time. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Suzanne Beach, and it's the first time I've heard about the permitting process. Can you explain that, and is there a fee for that?
The permitting for 4 to 6 dogs?
Do you have to get a permit if you're going to walk your dog at all?
No, it's only for those who are walking 4 to 6 dogs.
Thanks. Thank you. I'll take a question in the back with Adrian.
Hi, I'm Michael Sheets. I live here in Sausalito, and one of the deficiencies of the plan I see is that the off-leash areas are in beach areas that are not easily accessible from Sausalito. Sausalito has one of the highest percentages of seniors in the population, and it's not easy to drive to Simpson Beach or over to San Francisco in order to have a place to walk our dog off the leash. So I'd urge the Park Service to consider opening some of the local trails so that they're more accessible to this part of the population.
Thank you for your comment. Okay, we'll take another question from this side of the room, please. We'll give just a minute for Aaron to get over there with the mic. So again, question to 1 minute.
I'm Kira, and I'm from Tam Valley, and me and my family have a dog, and we really like taking her on walks on the trails, and I'm worried that if there aren't places for people to walk their dogs, people won't want to adopt dogs, and there will be more dogs in the shelters.
That's a good worry, Kira. We appreciate that. Wait, hold on 1 second. Kira, do you have a specific question you want to ask while you have the microphone? Okay, all right, thank you.
I'll take another question from this section, please. Under 1 minute and 1 question at a time. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Roger Brown from Mill Valley. Dog owners feel that all of our comments have been ignored. How would you address that? And where specifically have you addressed any of our comments in your revised policy?
So the comment, in case you didn't hear the end of it, was dog owners feel that our comments have not been addressed, and if so, where have we? I'm sorry, can you give him the microphone? I can't hear.
Completely ignored was the term.
So one of the things that we have in the hallway here is we have a county by county handout that shows the places where we have made changes. We know tonight, it's very clear, that there is one very strong point of view in this room. And we know that it's being expressed in a number of ways, and that's a part of what happens in America. There are also other points of view that may or may not get expressed here. So when we look at comments, we look at the full range of comments and evaluate those against the objectives that I showed. And while I understand that this point of view is strongly held and is sometimes deeply felt by people, our job as the National Park Service is to balance the different recreational opportunities. 10 to 12% of visits at GGNRA include dogs, but we're going to have 34% of the trails open for dogs. Those are some of the things that we balance.
We ask that you keep the cheering and the booing to yourself so that we can get to as many questions as possible and get the responses. I'll allow